Hi, I'm Christina, the host of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Interviews to Inspire, and welcome to this panel episode of our Inspiring Women.
Hi, I'm Amy Noobson. I am the owner of New Fire Collective, and why I chose Collective is because there are so many different great ideas and women and people I want to connect and collaborate with. One of the main things I do is storytelling. The stories we hear inside ourselves, how do you tell that story out loud to other people and have the courage to tell it in a way that empowers yourself and others?
Hi, I'm calling in from the basement at my mom's house here in Heartland, Vermont. I'm all about community building and engagement building for teams, for volunteers, for donors, team building, all of that. And I use also storytelling, or what I call story sharing, as the medium of how I help people build those connections. And how I do it is through the stories that get attached to things that we surround ourselves with, adorn ourselves with. And you can see some of the things behind me. It's not all of them matter, but anyway, that's because of the basement, but there you go.
Hi, I'm Pamela Newman. My practice is peer-reviewing counseling. I'm a clinical social worker and a psychotherapist. I'm outside the DC metro area. Our goal is to bring more harmony to homes in the DMV. We offer individual, group therapy, couples therapy, and parent coaching. And I guess in terms of stories, I feel like I hold people's stories and give space for people's stories in terms of storytelling. So I'm the receiver of the story.
Wow, and there it is. There's the beautiful thread that is within us. I love this. I'm so excited. Amy, would you like to ask a question to the ladies?
Yeah. In your lives, what has been the most powerful story you've heard so far?
It's a
hard question. I realize that now. I'm like, that was kind of like a hard lead-in.
I was like, Pamela has to follow HIPAA compliance, and I can't share
the
that.
story I tell people that themselves.
So I've got one then. I've got one because I don't have to follow any of those. I have hosted so far probably 450 story sharing gatherings in the last decade. I've listened to thousands of stories, and it's hard to pick which one is the most powerful. But the one that I have focused on a fair amount is a tin cup that a woman brought to an in-person event in Brooklyn, in Prospect Heights, Brooklyn, where this all started over a decade ago, in a friend's back room at their bar, which is still standing, thank God, all these years later. It's called Branded Saloon. If you get there, check it out. And she brought this very simple, very nothing fancy about it, tin cup with her, and shared the story of her father, who was raised in a very, very poor home in Ireland. And they had to go and get water at the town well and bring the water back to the household. And this was the one cup that they all shared in this house. And the miraculous thing was that he kept it throughout all the years, because he came to the United States and they were able to raise out of poverty. But he always kept this, and he didn't use it in the same way. But, I think that it ended up being like pencil or pencil and pen holder or something. She visited her dad and towards the end of his life, and he's like, is there anything that, you want? And she had heard the story because, like I said, things don't matter if they don't have the story connected to them. And so she said, I want that tin cup. And he was like, absolutely, and poured out the pens and gave it to her. And they reminisced about this experience of life and family and history through that tin cup.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Stories of other people that you could tell?
I'm thinking it's your patients, but you can also, you have friends and family.
Thinking about it.
Yeah.
I've heard so many stories of things. I think, in terms of just sort of generalities with my practice, I hear stories every day about how people have overcome adversity and been resilient and gotten through some really challenging times, and just, recognizing the strength in individuals and getting through these stressful, overwhelming situations. I'm trying to think of something in particular that I can share that I don't have a specific Tin Cup story. That's a really good one. You might need to come back to me then.
Pam, you inspired one for me, if that's cool. Jump in. So I remember talking to my grandmother when I was little, and she would tell me how she learned English. She's like, I learned English by watching soap operas. That's how she learned English. And she would tell me one time this idea of her, and I'm thinking, like, as a kid, you don't grasp how foreign that feels. And I remember her telling me one time that when she moved to America, she only knew one sentence. She goes, Anders is not home. That's her husband, my grandfather. That's all she knew. So when people come to the door, she's like, Anders is not home. And so one time a guy came to her and goes, I know Anders isn't home. And she goes, I didn't know what to do. He stole my line. Like, she was so terrified of how to respond to this. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's a simple language barrier of how powerful. My grandfather got mad in Norway after the Nazis invaded Germany, and he did not get the family farm he was promised because of the whole invasion. So he picked up his young family and moved to America to start and find his own farm. Wow. My grandmother knew no English, knew nobody, knew nothing about it, knew nothing about the culture, anything. And I think about that story all the time because I want to move to Portugal, to a country I don't know the language. I don't know, I know the culture and I love the people. I've been there. I'm still terrified. I'm like, goodness, can I just draw upon the strength of my grandmother and go, learn those few sentences and be as strong as she was with small children? I'm like, what do I have to be afraid of? She did it. She thrived. She loved it here. Mm-hmm. And so those stories, like, for me, that made the most impact. And it's also the reason why I love to travel, because of my curiosity of her journey coming here.
Very cool. Love it. I kept on thinking, what language? And then you ended up at the end of the story.
Even though I cannot speak Norwegian, but I wish I did.
Yeah, I have a fun one.
Ah.
So one of the times I was wintering down in Florida, I stayed in this condo and there was a guest book for people to come in, and Vidovich is written on there. I said, why is my last name written in this guest book? I'm here for 2 months in this condo. So I went and I talked to the manager the next day when they were in, and she's like, oh, Ivanka 4D. I said, what? Someone with my last name is very unusual, and you have to come from only 2 areas in Croatia, or you migrated 5 generations back, 6 now, to California. And so I went and I met her, and her story was incredible. So she was related through marriage to someone back in my family from the same town where my grandfather had migrated to the United States. Her story was so fascinating. Her father got picked up, so from Croatia after World War II, picked up and forced into the army. And after 2 years, they knew he was no longer around. And her story about World War II and how they would pick the berries as soon as the flowers would turn into the slightest bit of any kind of fruit, the children were picking them off the trees to eat them because that's how hungry they were. When the Americans came in, her mother had met a soldier who fell in love with her and said, okay, I want to bring you to America. So he went back to the States, came back to go get her. And then by this time, she was now a teenager. She had fallen in love. And, she was sticking with the guy, and she's like, well, maybe later. So they petitioned to get her over. So now with her new husband and their 2 children, who were 1 and 4, they went to the United States. Within 8 months, her spouse found out he had cancer and died. So she's now in the United States with her mother, her stepfather, 2 children under the age of 5, not speaking the language very well, but she had nursing skills. So she said, well, how can I do this because I need to take care of my family. So she decided to get her beautician's license in the meantime. So she started to do that. She opened up a small beauty shop across the street from the beauty shop in Chicago, where everyone was going. The socialite of Chicago got double booked and kicked out of the salon going, we don't have anything. Went across the street. You can hear this story, right? Ended up with Ivanka, loved her hair, sent all her socialite friends to her.
Wow.
So now Ivanka is making money hand over fist from going extremely poor, hand over fist. Ended up getting her real estate license because she said, I don't want to rent anymore. So now she's a nurse, a beautician, a real estate agent. So she bought herself a building in downtown Chicago, 7 floors, and is now making money as a landlord, as well as having shops around Chicago. Now, years go by, we hit 2005, 2008 range. Her son said, Mom, we have an opportunity to make some money with the buildings being built right now. She signs papers over with her son. They're about to buy more buildings. 2008 hits, and she's missigned one paper. She had signed Ivanka Vidovich, president, on every single contract but one. She now went from a multi-millionaire to owning one condo that was completely in her name and her name only in Florida, where I met her. Now she was working at a gift shop, making these beautiful little shells and selling them at one of the local shell stores and saying, you know what? I had a beautiful life. I'm 81. I'm just living off of what I had because I don't have to worry about buying a house now. So as long as I can eat, I'm happy. And I live at the beach.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a fun family like heritage that you went to, like you stumbled upon just randomly,
Yeah.
chose that place. You got to get a piece of your history back that you had no idea existed.
Yeah.
How fun.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about stories is I hear from a lot of women. I work a lot with women in stories, and they're like, there's nothing special about me. I don't have a massive story. I'm like, you don't need to have a traumatic event to be important or interesting. And so when I remember talking to a lady and she was just telling me, like, she goes, I'm nobody special. I'm nothing, like I'm like, wait, stop. Tell me about your life. And then she starts telling me, I'm like, you are the most courageous woman I've ever met. She's like, well, I have 3 special needs children at home. I'm a single mom. I'm doing this. I'm working. I'm like, whoa, wait, stop. There's sometimes we just need somebody to like say, stop, listen to who you are, what you are accomplishing, because there's no way, I don't know if I could handle something like that. Like that is amazing. And that's why I love working with others is to see the power in their own story. And she had no concept. She's like, I didn't think this is a big deal. I'm like, not everybody can do this. Not
Well,
everybody's thriving and enjoying this and being happy while doing this role.
yeah. I think parents of special needs kids have to rise to the occasion and they have no other choice. They do. But, to do the best for their children, they have to rise to the occasion in that way. And the families that I work with, most of those parents don't see it as anything special because it's something they just do.
Yes.
And it's a really tough job.
Yes. And it's amazing that they fulfill it in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as moving to another country. That's something that overcoming something that's so terrifying for most people would never ever do. Like they stay put, right? But something chose for them to rise above. And that's what I love about the stories that we tell other people. And they're just as powerful as getting the clarity inside your own mind. I tell my story over and over again to the point right now where my traumatic part of my life, it doesn't even hold any power. Like when I do my speech, I'm like, I can't even get to that pain anymore. Like, it has healed so much that it doesn't even have any power over me, except for it does have an impact for others. So I'm like, okay, get back into this space. What did I feel like? I have to reconnect. I have to almost like reshift my story a little bit so I can feel more connected to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is also very powerful when we create those stories in a narrative that can benefit the world, and benefit ourselves. So I love that you're working, Martie, with things, because we all have those people in our lives. I'm sure you see it all the time where the things become overwhelming, and the stories. And I've seen it where I'm like, it's okay. Can we let this go? And they're like, no, I
Be-
really, really can't.
Being overwhelmed with things. Yeah.
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 How do you help people with that situation?
It kind of wraps into the idea of, and I'm sure this is what Pamela might have some take on it as well, is that what you realize is that when you are able to share your story, when there's a space for you to share your story, in my case, it's publicly. So that's kind of a different take on it. They do it either virtually or in person and share it publicly, often with people that they don't know. And there's an interesting thing that I've seen happen the entire time is that when they have that vulnerability, that strength, that courage to share their story, it starts out in a certain way. It's kind of interesting. It starts out very close to the object, very close and connected to it, like literally kind of holding on to the object, with all their might. And then as they start warming up and sharing their story and breathing and just moving through the story, what I see is that the narrative changes. It shifts. It can be like there's a lot of work that I've been doing in the end of life space and with death doulas and funeral directors and morticians and stuff. And so a lot of people bring objects of people who've passed away. And in the telling of the story in a warm and welcoming space, it changes the narrative. There's a freedom, there's a distance that they're able to have from that story. And that gives them the ability to consider the possibility of letting go of the things. I never say that that's the end goal of any of it, but I do bring it up to them and talk about legacy. And is this something you want to leave behind? Is this what you're going to leave for your loved ones to care about? Do they know the story of the thing? Because if they don't, it's just going to be a dumpster. They're not going to know why it's important. So again, instead of what to get rid of, what to keep, and making sure that you share the story and changing that narrative is, I think, what for me, I'm so grateful for people like you, Pamela. I've got a couples therapist. I've got my own individual therapist, and it's changing the narrative that I tell myself and that I tell others that allows me to shift and change and consider changes and consider, responding differently, reacting differently, all of that.
Yeah, I think what you do is really fascinating. And in downsizing recently, some relatives, getting rid of those things can be really difficult in figuring out like who wants to keep what, if it's a loss, and what's important, and sort of the arguing between, say, siblings or, oh, I want this, and how each person attaches meaning to these objects, either because it reminds them of a time in their childhood, or they want that sort of transitional object to remember that person. It's really fascinating, sort of the psychology behind all of it and our stuff.
My first interviewee for my first guest on my podcast, Things That Matter, is Dave Roberts, and he's a psychologist and teacher. He mainly teaches. He's been teaching. And he told me about the linked objects. I'd already been doing my work for at least 8 years, but then he talked about the linked object, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it makes me think about you, Amy, thinking about moving to Portugal, because I have a good friend. We're both location independent. Amy, I noticed that in your thing. So I live part-time in a camper van named Brooklyn and live between my wife and mother-in-law who are out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and my mother who's here in Vermont. So will be down in DC for sure. We'll continue to talk about your stuff. I was planning it anyway, but I didn't know it might align. But I have a good friend who lives in San Francisco, and she's in the deep process of moving to Portugal, hopefully by the end of the year. And her big thing is, what do I do with the stuff? Right? What can I do, especially sentimental? She's like, I don't, the whole Marie Kondo thing about, if it doesn't spark joy. And she's like, that's easy. I can easily let go of things that don't spark joy. That's not a problem. But her sister had predeceased her by about 20 years, and she has her sister's stuff. And then her parents both have died, and she has their stuff. And she said, when I look at it, when I touch it, when I smell it, it all brings me joy. So how do I do this? And so we talked about the typical, take a photo of it, write the story, tell the story, put a QR, make a book, all of that. And she's like, but it's just so one dimensional, like the photos, so much, like I get it and I could do it, but it doesn't, So we've been talking about like the creation of maybe of a charm necklace, which is a very common thing in Europe for girls to get a special charm necklace or charm bracelet and have these things. Now with AI and 3D printers and all of those things, there's a capacity to do that. So we've been talking about how to keep the things without keeping the things.
It's definitely a challenge when you are thinking of relocating.
Move it.
Yes. Yes.
Big moving.
Yeah. When you're like, you have 4 suitcases, what are you bringing? For 2 people.
Yeah.
Clothes are usually the most important, right? But it's one of those things like I did it really, really small. I started going south. I live in Minnesota, so the winters are horrifically cold here. So I started being a working snowbird is what I called myself. And the snowbirds were not amused by that at all. They retired and they're like, what? So I started doing that about 10 years ago, but I love what I did was it slowly got me disconnected from my stuff in my house. Because the first time I went down there, I drove, had a whole car full of stuff. So full, it was ridiculous. I had a topper, I had the car full. But every year there was less and less stuff we brought because we're like, we didn't use it. We didn't use it. And then now I'm like, I went to Europe for 3 months with 3 suitcases with me and my husband. And then we didn't go for nothing. I did have to buy hats and gloves and scarves because it got really cold at one point. But it was really an interesting thing. And it was a small process to letting go and realizing what I needed versus what I had. Everybody wants to move to Europe. I'm like, that's great. Start small. Try it out. I love going to Albuquerque, New Mexico is one of my favorite places to winter. And so see what you like, see what you don't like, because that's the greatest gift I ever gave myself was those 3 months away in the winter time when it's gloomy and dark and dreary and finding a place that had sun. And people ask me why Portugal. I'm like, it has sun 300 days a year. Like
New Mexico too.
Yes. I like New Mexico, just not high elevation. Which is a beautiful
Not as close
thing.
to the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, I think anything major and big is worth planning. That's how I view things. And yeah, we wanted to move 2020. That got derailed. But you know what? We put the plan back in place. And next year we're leaving actually in July of 26. So everything has its purpose and time. And I'm really grateful for the extra time I got to spend with my parents here, during this time. And now is ready to go again.
that's cool. Well, I think there's also need versus perceived need. It's like, what do you actually need versus, oh, I need this. What do you really need to survive, to function, to get through the day? Like, you found out you needed gloves and scarves. It was something you actually needed because it was cold. So you bought them, but do we need all these pieces of jewelry and all of these trinkets and things and tchotchkes? But at the time, it feels like a real, oh, I need this. I need to keep this. I need to have this.
I was always amazed the kitchen is where you have the most stuff and the least amount of need. You're like, there's so many ways to get around all the little trinkets that you have in the kitchen. I'm like, especially when you go to Airbnbs, you're like, wow, I have a bowl and one frying pan. Okay, let's figure it out.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I always say my things have to have a story or a purpose, or ideally both.
Yes. I like that.
And it's amazing. You come back with that one suitcase and you're like, I lived in this. This is all I needed.
I know. Yeah, and you're strangely proud of it. You're like, look what I did.
I know.
And you're like, I'm never wearing these clothes again for at least 6 months, but I did it.
I know. I love how Christina packs. I know one thing that goes into every bag that when she travels.
Gold heels, because you never know. You can always buy the outfit, but as long as you have the shoes, them for any special occasion that you like.
Love it.
Yeah, and I actually had the opportunity, and I think both Amy and Pam, you would love the opportunity to join one of Martie's virtual Things That Matter. And because it really is such a spark of that moment when she's like, okay, and she reads the card out of the magic deck and says, this is what we're finding today. And suddenly you go on your own little
scavenger hunt.
Yeah, scavenger hunt. I wonder here somewhere. I'm sure. And it's so neat because, that emotion when you're sharing something that means something to you. Like I got to share the gold shoes and I got
and now I see them when she travels and all her photos. I'm like, the story of the traveling gold shoes.
Exactly. And, and I don't wear them enough that they're wear out, so they're perfect. I've had them for a decade and I'm still wearing them because they're a timeless classic gold shoe.
And keep in mind that you need good shoes when you're traveling, and she knows shoes because she still is, I hope, and we still have to have this conversation. She's a phenomenal dancer and had a dance studio. And so, shoes are important. They make the whole outfit. They make the whole experience. So,
and comfort is number one.
Yeah. Comfort and style.
Exactly. Gorgeous, but comfortable.
Yeah, I need to get rid of some of my gorgeous but uncomfortable shoes that I wore before I had baby.
The thing I love about Europe, they have more practical shoes. They're either like those gorgeous shoes that you're like, they must be hurting their feet, or they're super practical. That's one thing I love. I'm like, oh, good. I don't care what I'm wearing for shoes. These don't hurt my feet.
So, important when you're traveling.
Yeah, especially when you have cobblestone everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to break an ankle.
Yeah, I always felt bad for the people that are lugging like giant suitcases on cobblestone. You could just see them and they're in pain, and you're like, backpacks, all the way. Carry your clothes. So much easier.
I haven't done a lot of European travel. Hopefully we'll do some, but yeah, you remind me. So it's been since probably my early 20s since I've traveled to Europe. So, I mean, for an extended time. So, future.
Yeah, Martie, do you have a question you'd like to ask the ladies?
Well, you know what it is. My question always is, if you were asked this question, what's one thing that brings you joy, magic, and meaning? What would it be? An actual thing, an object, a photo, an object. It can be a photo, of course, that can show important people or animals or whatever, but a photo or an object. And you can also think, when you die, there'll be things left. And your loved ones will see those things. And what will they like? Why will they think that's important to you? And it can be jewelry, it can be shoes, boots, bags, and hats. It can be a scar. Like we have scars, tats, and piercings, like all of these things, like you're etched in your skin. Like it could be a scar. You survive that thing. Anyway, it can be lots of things that are not quite things.
So I'm thinking like the first thing that came to my head was my kids, but they're not things. But so for each of my kids' first birthdays, we did a cake smash where like, you put the big cake in front of the kids and then they take a picture of them with all the cake on their face. And then they put them in a bathtub and take pictures of them in the tub. So for each of my kids, we did this, and I got big metal prints of like collages of all the pictures. And I put them up sort of really prominently in our house. And I'd say that's probably like something that brings me a lot of joy and magic. It's just remembering how small they were and how funny it was the first time they ate cake and got it all over there. It's just sweet. And seeing the first set of pictures only has one kid, and the second pictures has two kids, and the third set has all three. And the youngest is like, "What? I'm the first one." And they're trying to figure out
why they're not there. Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Sure. Yeah.
I love that. That's so neat that I was just talking, I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and it was funny. I haven't been around a lot of children. I don't have my own. This comes through marriage. And anyway, I was just like, we were watching some cartoons last weekend or the weekend before when we were out in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And there were only two because thankfully our daughter does not allow her to do a lot of phone time or iPad time or TV time. So grateful for that. But we were watching one, and in both of these cartoons made now that are popular now, in both situations, one pulled out a scrapbook. Somebody, a character, pulled out a scrapbook and was there with maybe. Was that? I'm not.
Was it dog?
No.
Oh,
not this one. There's one that's like, because Martie is my name, so Martie the party cat was one of the characters. I was like, okay, so I don't.
Like Daniel Tiger. Okay, sorry. I know like this.
Somebody that's listening here probably will know what it is. But anyway, I was just fascinated with both of these things, two different things that my granddaughter was watching. They were pulling out photo albums and scrapbooks, something that nobody makes these days, Thank goodness, Pamela, you were like, you had the wherewithal and the time and energy and focus to create those things, because they do end up, like you said, they're like the kids, the youngest ones, like, why am I not in this? There's so many things that connect to family history and connect to their history and legacy and all of those things based on creations of these kinds of things. This collage, as simple as it was, is not simple when you're a busy mom or busy parent. So I'm grateful to hear that you created that. That's awesome. All right. And Amy?
For me personally, it's my jewelry collection, because everywhere I go, I get one piece of jewelry. And it always reminds me of that event or that place.
Yeah.
And because I don't want a lot of stuff, it's the smallest item I can wear and take with me. But when it comes to things that matter I remember when my grandparents died, and they were like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "So what I really want," and I told my aunt, and she's laughing. She goes, "Those are in the trash bin. I'll go get them for you." Like, it's the stuff nobody else wanted. I'm like, there was a beer bottle. My grandfather's name was Dick. He owned a bar. He loved drinking. He went to the bar until like he possibly couldn't go. That was his social place. And I found a bottle.
Mine too.
Yeah, and it was like Spotted Dicks. It was playing off the British. And he loved it. Never drank it. Put it on his mantle, and like he would not let anybody touch that beer bottle. I'm like, I want it back. I gave it to Grandpa. I want that back. They're like, okay, we'll go get it. It's the strangest little things. And then there was the strawberry shortcake jar my grandmother had on her counter that always had sugar in it.
Oh.
And I'm like, I want the strawberry shortcake. Plus, it was my generation, my childhood,
Right.
like
Yeah.
cartoon. I'm like, it always thought it was an odd thing. My grandmother had the strawberry shortcake jar. And I'm like, I want
For
that. She
you.
goes, again, that's okay.
It's in the garbage, but we'll pull that out too.
You go throw that stuff away. They're like, do you want anything valuable? I'm like, no, I
Right.
really don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's those things, those stories that matter. And those are two precious things that I have still out. And I got rid of all my knickknacks, all my things, that came and collect dust because I hate to dust. I got rid of it all when I sold my house. And I was like, those things stayed, right? They did not, they are still up and they're still displayed. And when I move, I'm like, I'll have to give it to my mom to hold on to because those I still will not give up.
Oh.
Because they will matter, and wherever I land, they will come back into my space. Yeah.
I love that. Those are because I had, and we'll get to you too, Christina, because I always have to ask you as well. And I know about the shoes already, so you'll have to come up with another one. So, sort of like the guy who said, I know your grandfather's not home. I just stole that.
Yes.
You can't do the shoes. But a friend of my friend, Bill Shapiro, and his partner, Naomi Wax, I found out about them because I'd been hosting my show and tales, these live events in Brooklyn for probably 6 years or so. And a friend of mine knew about it. And she found this. She was like, oh, I'm reading this thing. There's a book called What We Keep. You should reach out to him. It looks like he's doing, show and tell, but in a book form. And they ended up going around the country and interviewing hundreds of people, asking them that very question. What thing brings you joy, magic, and meaning? And what they said is there were like 2 out of 100, maybe 150, I think, 2 people that brought anything that would be considered valuable or an heirloom. It's like they said, our hearts are not accountants. It's like, these are the things like that tin cup. Or one person ended up bringing an empty egg carton, to one of my, and talked about her grandfather's love through this empty egg carton. Most of the things are not of very much value. They just, you saw it every time you visited, you used that jar, you gave that as a gift, you saw it, he loved it, that showed his love for you, all of that kind of stuff. So these are the things, these are why things matter. So thank you for that. So Christina.
Well,
No pressure.
so I am so happy. I had just found this. I had put this item away and just found it again 2 weeks ago and went, that's where you were. It's my grandmother's 50th anniversary ring. So her 50th anniversary was in I think how old are my uncle and then my dad? Married in 1936, so 1986. It is this beautiful band and it has like diamond chips in it. And I wore it all the way up until my finger swelled up from being pregnant with my son. So I'm like, okay. And I had to take it off and it had lost 3 of the chips because the prongs got a little soft. And I'm like, before I wear that ring again, I've got to get those chips back in. But I was so excited because one time there was a lady who's actually a psychic friend of mine who said, you will lose things and then they'll come back to you when it's time again. And I've only started wearing, he just turned 11. I've only started wearing jewelry, in particular rings again this year. And I found the ring and I'm just like, it's time to get it fixed and start wearing it.
Oh, wow.
And I also have her wedding dress, which was a simple satin slip. There was nothing fancy about it. It is literally a satin slip and she had like lace. Oh, I don't have the lace anymore because that was probably reused for something else at that time in the 30s. But I have that slip and it's this beautiful pearly off-white, just simple dress. Yeah.
Ooh, wow. Nice. How beautiful. You got a lot of great family history, Christina.
My grandma was she was my, I love my mommy, but she was my mommy too.
Yeah. Wow. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have questions you'd like to ask the ladies?
I'm always curious sort of about what inspired everyone to sort of being an entrepreneur is not an easy thing. And I'm always curious what inspired women entrepreneurs to get started and do what they do.
Great question.
So,
I love it. I'll start. So I've been in business for over 20 years with my husband. And I look back at the journey of the entrepreneur and I look at, and it's amazing how it has evolved over those 20 years between technology, interest, passion, purpose and I've grown, the business has changed and evolved. So I started off as a graphic designer originally. That was my first passion, my first love, still love design and creativity, but I no longer do it. And I'm so happy to support others who do it now. But my husband and I built a company around marketing, and I built it completely around his skill set. My husband's brilliant, creative, funny, but he makes people feel uncomfortable because he's really quiet and he just gets things done. And he's like, so what else do you need? He's just like, so people don't know what to do with him. So I was like, well, we'll create a business together. It'll be great. And everything was going really, really well until he was in a car accident and everything stopped. And I tell people, I go, in 3 seconds, my life flipped upside down and changed everything. And all of a sudden, through that whole process of 6 years of hell of rebuilding our marriage, our business, our financials, because we were denied car insurance. So we were, lawsuit, trying to get medical care throughout all of this. And they're like, oh, he's 30 years old. He's not injured. I'm like, he can't walk. And he had a traumatic brain injury that nobody would diagnose him with either. And I'm like, he can't do math. Like, he can't exchange money. There's something wrong. And struggling with all of that, I had to sit back and think about myself, like, who am I and what do I really care about? I love marketing and I love helping businesses, but it was the people that I cared about. It was the entrepreneur themselves. I wanted to be there for them because there were so many women I was turning away in my marketing business. I go, marketing is not the solution here. You need to make sales. Don't spend money on marketing. This won't help you. Like, marketing is a long, expensive game and you have to be in the right spot for it. So I'm like, I went back and got my coaching degree or certifications because I wanted to help them in a place to get to the point where marketing actually had an advantage and support. And then I fell into storytelling because I needed to learn how to speak my own voice. I needed that skill. And I always thought it was a skill that you were born with. Like, my sister was charismatic when we were born and I was very quiet. I was like, I'm in the room, but you don't need to see me. That was my personality. And I'm like, how do I flip this narrative for myself? And I had to learn storytelling because I'm like, everybody's like, she is so amazing, but I have no idea what she does. But I was really good at asking people questions. And engaging others. And so as my entrepreneurial journey went, I fell in love with the storytelling journey and really supporting entrepreneurs and telling their story and telling them their narrative of their own business does not have to be what corporate tells you. And I'm so grateful that it's getting to be more of a mainstream, because when I coach people, I'm like, what's your lifestyle? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you have to take in consideration your lifestyle. You are the business at this point, and no matter what, you are leading it. So what is your lifestyle and how do we build that into the business model? And it was refreshing for me to see people starting to take that into consideration, and then they started to thrive because they weren't fitting the norm that we were expected to fit back 20 years when I was in a business, and they were told you to like dress up in a suit, have your hair straightened, like there was this persona you had to look like and act like. I'm so grateful today we're all resisting that persona that we had to build into, because the joy doesn't show through when you are operating in a model that doesn't work for you. So that's my entrepreneurial journey. That's my mission, is to help women or men, even in that case, like really live within their lifestyle and their business and what they want to do. And it's all through stories typically. Yeah. Yeah. Great question.
So I'll go next. So I basically jumped into an entrepreneurial journey based on the fact that I realized I probably couldn't, not really quite the right person to work for other people. So I was a high school biology teacher in New York City public schools for 8.5 years. Loved my students. The administration finally burnt me out. So I had promised myself I would leave if I got burnt out. I didn't get quite burnt out, but I was definitely crispy around the edges. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I went through a wonderful program, 12-week program, something like that, called WeBo. It's Workshop in Business Opportunities. It's been going on for 50 plus years in New York City. And I didn't even have a business idea, but I went and just started this process. And I just came up with the idea of like, so do people have a problem with having too many photos, like photos everywhere, like boxes of photos, bags of photos, now computers full of phones full of photos, and they're never going to make anything out of it and never going to do anything. And they can't even find that great picture that they remember and all of that. My first work was Memories Out of the Box, my first business, or as my accountant would say, my first hobby, which is fine. Loved it. I help people with their photo, document, and memorabilia archives with the goal of telling a visual narrative. So when people like talk about like people not knowing what you do, Amy, you're like, oh, so you scan. If that's a process of the thing, but no, it's too boring for me, I send it out. I'm sort of like the art director, and I do all the organizing and curating of a collection with the goal of having a narrative at the end of it and whatever needs to happen with that. And so I started down that path, and very difficult because there weren't a lot of people doing what I do. Now I was a part of the Association of Personal Historians, which were mostly memoir writers and then legacy filmmakers. So people like me were very unusual that, I called myself a visual storyteller, but then photographers said that. And now I call myself a legacy artist. But it was an unusual thing even within this organization. Now there's thankfully a wonderful organization that's run by my friend Kathy Nelson, who is out of Hartford, Connecticut, and it has gone through a couple of name changes, but right now it's called the Photo Managers. So there's over 700 individuals that will help people with their photo, document, and memorabilia archives that are all over the world. So wonderful. And I don't like digital organizing. I also find that boring. I like the physical stuff, And then I got into story sharing, the gatherings, because as a way to market my first business. And then I realized I loved it so much. The story sharing, the community building, the testimonials from people, the transformation, the connections that it's built. And I've kind of given up because I'm a digital nomad, live part-time in different places. It's just too hard to have the physical objects and help people with that. I've pretty much given that up and focused totally on bringing my story sharing gatherings to different organizations who want to build engagement and community. So that's mine. How about you, Pamela?
And you were talking about burnout working at a school. So my first position as a social worker was working in a school for kids with learning disabilities and autism in high school as a counselor. But I mean, when I went to graduate school, same sort of similar, I wanted to work for myself. I always wanted to be my own boss. So I worked for school, and because of my personality, I was always like, oh, I'll do this committee and I'll do the Halloween thing and I'll be in charge of all the extra things. And I realized very quickly, hey, this is burning me out. And this is not, really furthering anything. I mean, it was great for the kids, but in terms of me, it was more than I needed to be doing. I sort of started kind of dipping my foot in the pool of private practice on the side. And next thing I knew, I had enough clients to leave the day job, which was great. And then I got pregnant with my first, and realized, hey, I need someone to cover for my clients. And I had a friend actually from high school who was also a social worker. And I was like, hey, you want to come work for me and cover for my clients? And next thing I knew, she worked for me for 2 years and then moved. And then it just snowballed from there. I had another former colleague who was like, how do I get into private practice? I was like, come work for me. And then I just found some amazing people throughout the years. So that's how I grew. Now I have 4 associates that work for my practice.
Wonderful.
And definitely challenging to run a business, but I love it. And yeah, working for someone else. And after you work on your own, working for someone else seems very foreign.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found your way to
Yeah.
your
And you
work.
bring up a good point, Pam, that I think the future of small business is collaboration. It's so hard to get noticed. And I've been in the world of marketing for how long, but it's getting harder and harder to get noticed as a small solo or small business. And I think that's where, if we are comfortable and we don't feel like our collaborators are our competitors, we can really get noticed and do bigger things, make a bigger impact when we collaborate with others.
Yeah.
And so I have a collaboration that I'm working on where we're helping businesses do joint ventures. Like, how do you do it? How do you manage it? Discussions, how do you make decisions as
Mhm.
3 owners of 3 different businesses to come together to make a new company that can support each other? And it's a beautiful thing. And I really do think that's the future of small businesses.
I'm very much a proponent of the abundance theory. If I always say, if it's not a client that's going to fit my practice, I want to help them find someone else. And the more people I know that are out there that do what I do, I cross refer to people all the time. I think it's really important. I don't do something like EMDR, which is very specialized, but I want to know all the people who do so I can refer to them. I know that if I'm paying it forward, people are paying it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want clients to find the right fit.
That is the perfect attitude for an entrepreneur. The right clients.
Yeah.
Right clients for you and the right client and the right
others.
person, provider
Yeah.
for them. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to waste anyone's time or money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed.
And Christina.
So the short story, I'd always known that I wanted to work for myself. I mean, from the time I was a kid, I was interested in fashion design. I started school with that, ended up in psychology, ended up in the ballroom world. And
Yeah.
then after working for someone going, I had parents. I don't need to be told what to do. Let me get onto my own path and do what I want to do. So that brought me into the ballroom world and industry and doing all of the amazing things, not only with ballroom, but teaching children and having a staff of 14. And what a wonderful team that I had that I worked with for all of those years. I did that for 20-ish years. And then it was, okay, you love that, but what's that other thing that you've always wanted to do? Here it is. You're on camera talking to other women.
And you're very good at it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But
Yeah.
who knew this was, the beginning steps of what is to come. And I'm still in that process of going, okay, let's just keep going because I am loving this every minute of it because it's conversations like this that are so inspiring. I'm going to get off of this call and like, yeah, that was so much fun. And that's what I love, about all of this. And it's doing something I love, figuring out how to make a business out of it, because that's the other part, right? And yeah. So I'm really, really happy where this journey is taking me and wherever we're going with it next. I'm so excited. So
Me
yay.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm loving being along for the ride and watching and having you be a part of other things and me being a part of it. It's like the collaboration stuff is wonderful.
And I love the fact that I can go, oh my gosh, I know somebody I'm celebrating them by bringing somebody else who needs you or needs to hear that story, or it's there. And I love that connection. I'm like, people stay away from the word networking, but I'm like, it's a network of amazing women. And I'm so happy to be part of your network. All of you.
Yeah. Same,
So, yeah.
same here, Christina. And lovely to meet both of you.
So
Yes.
know we're a little bit over, but I want to go ahead and have everybody say their last words. Pam, if you'd like to share some last thoughts today.
I'm realizing I'm not great under pressure. Children eat your brain. No, I love them. I love them, but I definitely thought more clearly before I had them. I think this is great. And Christina, thank you so much. It was wonderful meeting both of you, Amy and Martie, and sharing with everyone. I really appreciate this. It's great to see other women who are doing great things and working hard. And Amy, have fun in Portugal. I might come visit you.
Yes. Do. I hope so. I'm going to have 2 bedrooms so people can.
There we go.
Wonderful. So thanks again, Christina. It's always a pleasure. This was my second panel. And Pamela, like, the next one will be easier. Like, it's mainly the thing is Christina is just so easy. Like, the people that the women that she draws to her are just so, like, salt of the earth, like doing important healing work in the world, including her. And she's got such a warm and welcoming presence that it just always, and I love that it's not rigid. It just kind of flows. It's like a conversation, like going out and grabbing a bite to eat and having coffee or a drink and just chatting. So I love that experience. And so thanks again, Christina.
For me, it's more of when we talk about the entrepreneurial journey, it can be very lonely. It can be very isolating. You can't tell your employees what you're thinking if there's a problem always. So connections to other women who are entrepreneurs is such an important part of your mental health, your ability to say, this is why I get up in the morning. My network is my lifeline. As you were saying, Christina, like the people I have put into my network are amazing, beautiful women all over the world. And my mom always goes, how do you know so many people? Like, how do you do it? I'm like, I talk to them. Like that's all I do, right? And it's really sometimes just a random person. You're like, yeah, I can have coffee online with you. And meeting the most amazing person that I would have never gotten an opportunity just being in my backyard, to the point sometimes where I have to remember that I do have a community in person that I need to get more involved in versus just the online world. But it's fun going to almost every city and having somebody I truly enjoy or can't wait to meet in person. So keep reaching out.
Yay. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, listeners, for joining us on this special Inspiring Women episode of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness, Interviews to Inspire. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Martie. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll all see you in DC in October.
To me,
Portugal
courage is
with
taking
my
action. Do something
being
about
a
it.
digital
Oh my God.
nomad and moving
And I
9
encourage
times
women
before.
to